Shall we begin?
Yes.
Do you want to take the roll call, Adam?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we've got in attendance today for the Audit and Corporate Governance Committee, we have on the call Councillor Fitzsimmons, Councillor Froggatt, Councillor Axel, Councillor Carey, Councillor Friend, Councillor Keane, and Councillor Marks, Councillor Parish. Are there any other councillors who are on the call who I haven't mentioned? That's fine. And also on the call from officers, we have Matthew Cumberbatch, Linton Green and Danny Mather. Are there any officers on the call who I haven't mentioned?
Yes, Jean Gleave.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, Chair, that's the roll call's been taken. If members join during the meeting, they can announce that when they've joined, but over to you to start the meeting.
Okay, so we'll formally take apologies. I'm taking it there's none received.
No, haven't received any apologies, Chair.
Okay, fair enough. Code of conduct, declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks for that.
Hello.
Item 3 minutes. Are you happy with the minutes? Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hi.
Who's that?
It's Cass.
Cass.
I'm supposed
All right.
to. I'm online and I can see me, but I can't see anybody else. And it actually says when the meeting starts, we'll let the people know you're waiting. Well, I've been sat here for 15 minutes now.
Anybody else to that?
Hmm?
Can you hear anybody else, Cass?
No, no.
You can hear me.
I can see me. I can see me, but I can't see anybody else like I did last time. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear properly?
I can hear you, but I can't hear anybody else.
That's because there's nobody else speaking.
Councillor Buckley, I'll give you a call separately. I'll call you now. It's Sean.
Okay. We'll go on to the statement of accounts, item 4. Danny, that's you.
Sorry, Chair, can you hear me? Sorry, I was having a few problems with the via. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
I can hear you. Can everybody else hear Danny?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, Danny, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. But what you've actually got in front of you is the report, an update report on the statement of accounts for 2019-20. Normally at this time of year, in the normal year, the draft accounts would be produced by the end of May, and they would be brought to this committee in May. COVID has affected everything in life these days, and it's also affected the production of the statements of accounts. Similar to private company accounts, the governments have changed all the deadlines for the production of the accounts. So normally whereby the draft accounts would have to be produced by the end of May, they've now rolled out that deadline to the end of August. And normally whereby the accounts would actually be audited and signed off by the end of July, that's been rolled out to the end of November. The reason for the change is primarily there's a great deal of technical changes that have taken place due to COVID, with accounting regulations, and obviously producing a statement of account is a massive piece of work. So originally we took the decision in Warrington we would try to move work towards the May deadline, but as we started to do that, we thought it was a bit silly for a number of reasons. I think the main one was the vast amount of work involved, and also there was valuing assets. There was a lot happening professionally within sort of the valuation industry. I think a big one as well was the auditor as well. Our accounts have not been signed off for 17, 18 and 18, 19, so they can't sign 19. So they actually sorry, can you still hear me? Sorry, someone's playing music.
Hello.
Yeah. I think in a nutshell, we've actually produced the draft accounts now internally as officers. We're just having them subject to final DD, and yeah. Linton actually hopes to sign them off sometime in early August. As well as the COVID having an impact on the accounts, what I've done in sort of section 4, I've tried to highlight some of the things that I think will come out during the audit, which are impacts of COVID nationally. One of them has been on volatility on the sort of valuations of property. What happened in March, RICS, which is the Institute of Chartered Surveyors, put a caution on all valuations nationally due to COVID. So what they were saying, in effect, we valued everything to the best of our knowledge, but the impact of COVID on valuations is really unknown. I'm quite pleased to say since then, a lot of those cautions have been lifted very, very slowly on, social housing, on bonds, on logistics, NHS stuff. So a lot of the stuff that we've got does form into those categories. But I do think that, there is going to be a lot of work involved for officers and auditors and the issue of valuation this year. I think one of the things for us as well has been remote working. We've actually done, a fantastic job producing the accounts, but producing accounts is probably when you need people in the office, because we're constantly talking to each other over desks and everything. So that's something to bring sort of to your attention. And also, one of the reasons for the delay, we've had to, the councils have gained a lot of extra money from the government during the COVID period, and some of that related to 1920. So there's been a lot of ding dong how we actually go about sort of accounting for that. If I can just very, very briefly, what we've done in the paper, we give you the major accounts, the balance sheet, income and expenditure, correction fund, and some information on group accounts. But if I can just give you, I'll quite happy to take any questions. I'll just give you some highlights on the accounts for this year. So overall, the council's recording an overspend of 295,000, which I think is a really good result considering the challenges that we've had. We're also pleased to announce that that we've made a contribution to reserves of over 29 million in the year, and but one of the key things as well, the council's obviously, everyone knows, doing a lot of commercial stuff, a lot of borrowing, but the council's balance sheet is extremely strong. The council's balance sheet has increased in value by just over 118 million in the period. So, we might be doing commercial stuff, but we do have a net worth of over 300 million. So that means if we were to sell the council tomorrow, theoretically there should be 300 million going spare. And I think the key one for me is, it's been absolutely amazing to work with staff across the council producing this document, because it's a very, very difficult document to produce in the best of times. But actually working offline and the technicalities this year, I don't just mean finance staff, I mean across the, there's valuers, there's everyone feeding into this document now. So there is a big thank you for me as well for the professionalism of staff across the council, and I'm happy to take any questions that you've actually got on the document, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Are there any questions from anybody?
Chairman, a question for clarification. In previous years, we've been concerned about the pension liability. This year, there's a decrease of more than 114 million, or decrease of 46%. So could Danny explain the reason for that decrease in pension liability?
Yeah, I think the increase in the pension liability, there's been a triennial review in the period, but I think in a nutshell it's been down. Well, previously it's been down to the strong performance of the economy and the stock market and the bond markets, that a lot of the pension fund is actually investing in. I would imagine when it's come to to sort of be revalued next year, you know, there might be a reverse movement, you know, as the stock markets and the bond market rallies in the period.
Thank you.
Okay, no supplementary then. Anybody else got anything to comment or question?
Chair, Councillor Steve Parish, 5-1 in the report. Obviously, a lot of the schools that have gone academy have gone off the books, but the last sentence says there's been a large downward valuation of the council's investment programme, investment properties rather. I'm not sure I could find it in the actual balance sheets. That's got the investment properties going up by 206 million. So where's this large downward valuation? Acquisition.
Yeah. But I think yeah, it's a very good question. That it will be difficult to pick up on the balance sheet, and where you will pick it up is when you get the notes to the balance sheet. What that refers to, it's not the investment properties. It's not the properties that the council has been buying. You know, such as Birchwood Park and the supermarkets and the big logistics centres. Across the board, they've actually gone up in value. And what that actually refers to, a lot of it is the historic stuff that the council owns and the new stuff that's come on balance sheet this year. So if you take Times Square, for example, when we're developing something out, we actually hold it on the balance sheet at cost. But once properties open, they're valued. So what's happened with COVID, if you take Cineworld and The Botanist, for example, the valuers have actually valued those down due to COVID. So the downward movement is largely due to a lot of downward movement on a lot of the historic properties that the council holds. It can be very confusing with terms, but we do need to differentiate. It's not the investment portfolio that we've been investing in, and that's actually gone up in value.
You okay with that, Steve?
Yes, I think so. I mean, the COVID thing, it might crop up elsewhere because not quite sure, but obviously pandemics were on the risk register, most of what we did. But I don't think anybody quite expected a pandemic like this. So at some stage, it would be useful to have a report on, what we do with risk registers in the future for this sort of eventuality.
Yeah, I think what we've done as well, Councillor Parish, it might have been easy if you did have the accounts in front of you. The narrative forward to the account, in at the front of the accounts that really summarises the accounts, and then we've done quite an extensive section in there on the impact of COVID on the council. So it will cover, which properties have gone down and which properties have gone up. So I think when the accounts come out, that would be a good section for you to read and hopefully get a better understanding.
Okay, thank you. I'm always open for a better understanding. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay, anybody else on this item?
Yeah, Chair.
I'm happy to note it then.
Could I just pass a comment?
Who's that?
Peter Carey.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Yeah, just like to pick up on the point Danny made about the way the staff have rallied together to produce these accounts. I think in the circumstances with the working from home arrangements and the fact that everybody's scattered, it has been a remarkable achievement to produce a set of accounts as early as this, especially also in view of all the increasing technical requirements that the sort of property investments require us to comply with. So they get more complex each year, but to have achieved this set of accounts so early, I think it's something to be commended.
Yes,
Okay, so
Chair, Ian Marks.
hi, Ian.
Hi. Yeah, I had two questions. Luckily, Steve has asked one, which is about 5.1. The second one is the question I always raise at ACGs, and it's referred to several times in this report and no doubt elsewhere. And I'm sure you know what's coming. Have we any information about when we might get Grant Thornton to sign off these earlier accounts?
Perhaps I can answer.
Silence.
Perhaps I can answer that, or whether I know Andy Smith has joined us as well. My understanding is that we will have an answer on the 2017-18 objection very shortly, and I do mean very shortly.
In a few months.
No, we are talking within a week.
Okay, thanks, Lynn.
But once we've got that, there are then still a few things to finalise before Grant Thornton can sign off the accounts, but that would resolve the objection position.
Okay, well, that's right. Thanks.
By the end of next week, we'll have a heads up which way it's going.
I would hope so.
Okay, that was a nod for those who didn't see it from Linton there. He was nodding. Anything else? Any more on this item? Can we note it then? Pass on.
Yep.
Okay, duly noted. We'll go on to item 5. That's Eugene, the annual governance statement.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So the annual governance statement, this is for 1920, and this supports the statement of accounts that we've just been talking about. It accompanies the statement in draft, and it goes off to the external auditors for them to audit, just like they audit the statement of accounts. And it's a statutory responsibility as part of the accounts and audit regulations. You'll have seen the format of the document before, because it's a familiar format that we're using each year now. The statement itself, I'll just go through a few pointers from it, but so we have the summary statement, and then we have Appendix 1, which sets out the effectiveness of the governance arrangements in year. So as you know, we do have our own Code of Corporate Governance, which sets out our arrangements, and this statement sets out how we've practically sort of applied those during the year. Appendix 2 to the statement, to the annual governance statement, deals with the issues that we raised in last year's statement. There were significant governance issues and what we've done about them. And Appendix 3 just summarises Section 5 from the statement and the significant governance issues that we have for 1920. So the council uses a similar approach to previous years. We use a self-assessment process for directorates to review their own governance arrangements, and the governance group keep an eye on this all through the year and look at the whole framework of assurance that sits around it. And we've tried to show that illustratively again at Appendix 4. Do intend to do some work on that over this next year. And it was agreed at Strategic Leadership Team on 7th of July. And Strategic Leadership Team talks about the significant governance issues that you'll see in Section 5. One of the key things, if I go into the statement itself, if you look at Section 3 in the statement, we've set out the governance framework, but we do need to include the arrangements that have been put into place for COVID-19. So, because even though this statement is a look back at 1920, it needs to be up to date, up to the date when we sign off the accounts. And as Danny's just explained, that could be an extended time period this year. So we need to take into account what's happened since March with the pandemic and how that's impacting on us now in the amount of time to sign off the accounts. So we've put a paragraph there around the arrangements in place. And then when we come to Section 5, which is the significant governance issues, we've included the COVID-19 impact. So this section is probably the main section to look at, and those are the issues there that have been brought out as the significant areas to look at. So the audit of the accounts we've brought out again, and Linton's just mentioned, you know, we should be in a position to get that answer in the next week or so for 17-18. We still then have the 18-19 accounts to conclude. The whole budget and savings programme, we've included information governance and cyber again, which is still seen as one of the key risks and is in the strategic risk register. The work around project governance, the work around health and social care integration, and then of course all the impact of Brexit and the what that means for the workforce. And then we've put a full section in there on the COVID-19 impact. And then Section 6 is really looking at the future developments. And again, it's trying to bring out the impact of COVID-19 in this financial year and then longer term. So that's the way the statement has been set out. At section 7, in the conclusion, we may have to revisit that as we get towards finalising the statement. It could be that we have two sets of conclusions here. We think there's a conclusion for our sort of normal arrangements before the pandemic hit. We could put that and put a separate conclusion that we feel is now in place given COVID-19. So that is still work to be done on that section as well. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jean, for that. Are there any comments or questions?
No, not from me. That's Kath Buckley.
Okay. Anybody at all? This requires a formal vote. Normally, in committee, I just ask if we approve it, but because we're meeting as we are, I'm going to have to take a formal vote from each of you, and I'll do that in the order that we appear on the agenda. So I'll go first, and I'll vote for the report, and then Colin, you're next.
I'll vote for the report, Chris.
Thank you, Peter.
Vote for.
Diana.
Vote for.
Has Jan joined us? No. David. I thought David was on the phone. Okay, I'll get back to him. Steve?
For.
Thanks. Is Paul joined us yet? No. Brian?
For.
Ian? Ian, are you there?
For.
Gath? All right, thanks. Gath?
For.
Okay, and we'll go back to David again, just to see if he's with us. He's on the phone, isn't he? Do you think he might not have heard us? Well, notwithstanding, it's a majority, so we'll move on to the next one. So that's approved.
Chair.
For that.
Chair,
Yeah.
it's Malcolm Basham. Forgive me for interrupting. Just a technical point. We don't have a record of the minutes being agreed from the last meeting. I think at the time we reached it on the agenda, I think Councillor Buckley had phoned in and there was an issue with her telephone. So we don't have a record of the minutes of the last meeting being agreed. And so just a recommendation, you may want to cover that. Either you can do it now or do it to the end of the meeting.
I'm happy to approve them.
I did ask. Yeah. Okay.
I was at the meeting. I'm happy to approve them.
Right. Are we happy with the minutes? The previous?
Yep. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Formal record. Okay, well, thanks for that. We'll go to 6, which is you again, Danny. Treasury Management Outturn Report. Okay. Well, while we're looking for Danny, we'll go on to 7, which is you again, Jean, the annual report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is the annual report of the internal audit work that's been done over the last year. Again, you'll be familiar with the layout of the report, similar layout to the one we've used for the past few years. The SIPSA statement on the role of the head of internal audit notes that the head of internal audit has to give an overall opinion at the end of the year based on all aspects of governance, risk management and internal control. And this is what this statement will give you over the last year. At 1.4, I have noted there again about the COVID impact on the internal audit team. So since the middle of March, all the audit team have been working from home, and it resulted really in a pause in the internal audit work in a number of areas and has affected completion of the planned work for 1920. We still have done enough work here to put the opinion together just based on the work that we'd done up to that time. So that's what we've done, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the report. you've just seen the annual governance statement, and it is and the opinion you use that to inform the annual governance statement. But just to point out that it does contribute to the sources of assurance available to yourselves as committee and to the council, and that our work, as I said, even more so this year where we paused the work, but we don't cover absolutely everything. Of course, as you know, it's based on a risk-based plan of work, and this statement very much just covers the work that we've undertaken during the year. So section 2 there is the opinion. I've given an overall satisfactory assurance opinion on the control framework, but what I've had to do here again, and similar to last year, it's a bit like an exception, because I've not been able to call upon key sources of assurance that as head of audit I would normally call upon. So the external auditors sign off of the financial accounts for 17-18 and 18-19, and obviously the value for money opinion from the external auditors for both of those years, that they would normally be key sources of assurance that I rely upon. 2.1 just shows the basis of the opinion that we've pulled together. I've tried then to show some paragraphs about the type of work that we do. So all the work around governance, I've noted here at section 2.2. We mentioned capital schemes governance in the annual governance statement, and there are a significant number of schemes underway. The governance arrangements around those schemes continue to be developed, and Capital Investment Planning Group receive updates around those major programmes of work. We have just completed a piece of work from the end of last year around that, and have made some recommendations around the role of that group and so on. And we will take that forward into this year. And we have noted there about potential strategic oversight of all of the schemes and continued escalation of risk. And then work around the financial governance. We have recognised, obviously, the sign-off of the accounts, but also how the council developing with their strategic investment portfolio that Danny will come on to in his presentation, and how far that has developed. And obviously there are associated risks with that. The authority continues to recognise and mitigate against. Oversight and resource to manage those activities is something that we keep an eye on, and I know that's something that Danny and the team are working through. In that respect, in January, a separate group was set up. The Investment Performance Review Group was set up by the Chief Executive and chaired by the Chief Executive. And that is to aim to get that strategic overview of commercial schemes and so on. They've also, Council have commissioned an external review of the commercial strategy and governance, and that's underway currently. So there is a lot of work going on to work around that activity. I've just put there about the financial systems that we work through, which obviously is a key part of our work. I'll not go through that in detail. I'll then just take your attention to section 2.4, which is the risk-based assignments, and into the graph that's on the report page 11 there. It is quite hard to compare. So whilst we've put 1920 against 1819, as I've mentioned, we didn't quite finish off 1920, but I think you can see from the graph that it still does indicate quite a robust control environment. We've had 2 high assurance opinion reports and 10 satisfactory, with only 1 report with a limited assurance opinion on there that was issued. So it does show quite a robust picture. And then section 3 is just trying to pull out some of the other work that we've done during the year, and some of the things to just bring to your attention. I'll not go through those in detail. There is a separate annual counter-fraud report with your information pack. So you have that there. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. And I've just talked at section 4 about effectiveness of the team, and in particular, just to take your attention to the table at section 4.2. We aim at Q4 to have completed 80% of the plan. And as I mentioned, with finishing off mid-flow in March, we completed 71% against the target. Most of that work is now finished. The team have done quite well, really, with setting off on 2021 work, even though up until the last few weeks they have been sort of helping out in other key areas in the council that have needed some resource. The other target that is low there is the final reports issued within 25 working days, and that is something that we have been trying to work on and will still continue to focus on over this next year. So that is the one that is low. I think they're the main things that I wanted to bring to your attention, really. And I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, please, Chris.
Yeah.
It's on page 4 under capital schemes governance. And Jean did mention it, that there's still a requirement to ensure strategic oversight of all schemes. What plans have we got in place to meet this strategic requirements?
Is this a capital scheme? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, it's capital schemes governance.
Yes. I think the main area there will be the role of capital investment planning group and how reports are made into that group and sort of summary information. So we have the complete capital programme, which is very detailed and has every scheme on there. And the work that we've just done within the 2 directorates in growth and environment and transport, that's shown as well how much detailed oversight and reporting there is within each directorate. It's how to summarise that and report that in a sort of a more summary way into CIPG and then on to cabinet, rather than the whole programme that we've been looking at. So I think that is still work to do. I've got some discussions that I've planned to talk to Danny around that, as to how best to do that reporting. But yes, it has been work in progress and it has been developed, and certainly the role of CIPG has been developed, but still probably work to do on that.
Okay, Colin, anything else?
Yeah, just where will audit and corporate governance fit into that?
I think on the assurance framework document that accompanies the annual governance statement, reporting should go through then to Audit and Corporate Governance Committee. So certainly from our report, we would report back. We'll certainly bring that audit report that we've done on the capital governance work, and that will cover some of that reporting elements.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jean.
Okay,
thanks, Chris.
Line. Anybody else?
Chair Steve Parish, on the same page. Could you elaborate on the bottom? We've got the external auditors haven't published their value for money opinion for 2017-18 or 2018-19.
Sorry, can you repeat the page number again, please?
It's well, one of yeah, it's page 4 of this particular report, item 2.2 under corporate governance, right at the bottom, the financial governance.
All right.
And I think it'd be helpful as well if people muted if they're not speaking as well. There's a lot of background interference.
Yes, sorry, Councillor. The value for money report that the external auditors produced, we've not had that now, obviously, because the accounts haven't been signed off for those 2 years. That is a key source of assurance, that report, and that is usually something I would place reliance on when I'm pulling my opinion together as well. And certainly, for Linton and the team and for yourselves, as I say, that is a key source of assurance for all of us. So no, we've not had those reports for those 2 years as yet.
So they can't be produced until the accounts are signed off?
I think it ties in, I mean, Linton will know better than I do, but I think they tie in quite closely with the accounts process, because if you've got a hold up to your accounts, that's providing a lot of information for the value for money statement.
Okay, and were at least the 2017 accounts to be signed off within the next few days? I take it. Can you do an addendum to this report, or is that is fixed in time? Is it? And the report is the report when it was made.
Yes, I mean the report is the report over the last year, and you know, as at the date I was pulling this opinion together, and I'm sure you could, you know, I could put an addendum with this to show, you know, that assurance has come through, but it has already, you know, come to you as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anybody else wish to comment or question?
No,
Okay,
no.
Okay, so happy to note the report. Shall we try Danny again, going back to item 6, Treasury Management? Is Danny with us? Sean,
was
do you know?
there 2 minutes ago.
Say again?
He was there 2 minutes ago.
And anyone take that item in his absence?
I'll take it if he's not coming back in.
Okay, Linton, the floor's yours.
Just scroll back to the beginning of the report myself. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now? It's Danny, sorry.
All right. Yeah, okay, Danny, we can hear you now.
Just by magic.
Sorry, yeah, I'm having an absolute nightmare this evening with this. Apologies. Yeah. What you've got in front of you is the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 2019-20. So each year, as part of the budget, full council agrees a strategy. So this strategy was agreed in February 2019. And this report gives you an update of how we've performed in the year. The document is a bit of a beast of a document itself, but what we've actually tried this year as well to incorporate all the new guidance, and I think as Jean said, we're constantly working on how we can improve reporting and transparency. So there's a lot of new stuff in there this year, particularly on the non-treasury investment side. So that's largely, you know, all the loans to registered social landlords, and probably more importantly, there's detail in there as well about all the commercial investments, particularly commercial property that we've been investing in over the last 12 months. What I'll do, I'll go through the key sections of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions that you've got. If we can take you to probably the key table, summary table, is in paragraph 6.2, which really shows the borrowing and investment position of the council. So as you can see, borrowings increased over the year, but that's largely reflective to fund the council's capital programme, and particularly the investment we've done in the commercial programme and commercial property. You also notice that our investments have increased substantially. That's largely down to very late on in the year, towards the end of March, the PWLB rate dropped. It's the lowest it's ever been in history. So we've got a large borrowing requirement to fund this year's capital programme. So we actually took advantage of that low interest rate really to borrow some money to fund the 2020-21 capital programme. That's actually proved to be a fantastic move, because since that date rates have actually rocketed up. So that should generate some good savings to the council going forward. I think on section 8 as well, that this is not our summary, it's a summary of how they see the economy performing going forward due to COVID. I think the key thing, you know, for the council is obviously the interest rate forecast. We're going to be living in an economy for some time with very, very low interest rates. There's a big debate going on at the moment whether we'll see negative interest rates this year. there's both a positive and a downside for the council on that. Obviously, if we're borrowing money, we're borrowing at much cheaper rates. But obviously, if we're investing money, we're getting a much more poorer return. I think Section 11 sort of gives you some background to the individual investments that we've held in the year and new products that we've actually gone into. But if we can draw your attention probably to Section 12, this is all the non-treasury investment stuff that we've invested in during the year, and obviously one of the big areas, and it's getting a lot of publicity, not just Warrington, I mean nationally, commercial property at the moment. But in year, the council's commercial property has performed really well. In terms of return, it's outperformed all its budget forecasts, and the assets that we actually hold, even with COVID, have actually gone up in value. And COVID, due to the fact that the things that we bought, big warehouses and everything, have been very futuristic, that COVID has only had a minor impact on our property portfolio. I think one of the most encouraging things, as I say, for me as an accountant, it's probably very, very dull to read, are the prudential indicators. These are really the financial indicators that we produce in the strategy that, Linton has got to operate within, and I'm pleased to say that we've actually operated within all those indicators within the period. I think also with all the non-treasury stuff and the wider stuff that we do hold, if I can draw your attention to Appendix 1 as well, they're all the key commercial, financial indicators of the council, largely based on its commercial programme. And, as you can see, we've operated within those indicators within the year, and we've operated very, very successfully. And I think in terms of financial performance as well, Thornton Investment has delivered quite a large underspend to the council this year. And we also did some very, very successful debt restructuring with the bond this year. So one of the reasons we made such a large contribution to reserves was that we issued our bond before Brexit at the right time, and an investor actually paid a premium for it. So we actually made on that deal, and also with COVID occurring, interest rates have hit inflation rates have hit rock bottom, and the bond is actually benchmarked to interest rates. So we're making a massive saving on the bond at the moment. So we have had a very, very successful year in terms of debt rescheduling as well, Chair. And I'm happy to take any questions that you've got on the report.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Chair, it's Ian Marks.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Danny. Yes, at 12.8, the housing company. I'm just interested to know who the 3 officers of the council are, who are the directors, and also whether any consideration was given at the time to whether there should be a member on that board as well. Bearing in mind that when we used to have Tourist and Golden Gates before that, we certainly used to have members involved in our housing operations.
Yeah, I think the directors of the board of that company at the moment, it's 3 officers of the council. So it's Mark Dennett, who works in corporate finance for me. Mark's quite experienced in the housing sector. He's actually a councillor in Thornton, and he's also been chair. He's been a board member of Thornton Housing Trust and chair of the audit committee for a number of years. We've also got sort of Arthur Pritchard on the board. He's one of our senior estates officers, and also Maurice Willis, who's the council's VAB manager. But Maurice does have extensive industry experience. I actually don't think to date it has been sort of discussed about sort of having a member on the board. I think that's something I can take back and sort of have discussions with legal colleagues and governance colleagues on that point.
Okay, thanks, Danny.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor Steve Parish, same page, 12.9, page 83 in the agenda. Last sentence, for a business case to be taken to September 29 cabinet, should that be 2020?
So yeah, I think that's that's an error. Yeah, it should be 2020. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Steve, to prove you read the report?
No, no. I think what's fascinating is some of the stuff which reads, let's say, as if it's already out of date. I mean, 8.1 on the Brexit issue. It's unclear as to whether the coronavirus outbreak may yet impact on the deadline for leaving at the end of 2020, where we've left already, but actually leaving the transitional arrangements. Did you write that before the legal deadline passed for extending that deadline, or are you still hoping there might be some common sense prevail?
No, I think it was actually written before. I think this we just really do a copy and paste from which most councils do from link our financial advisors. So I think I do support what you're saying. This is the latest copy we've had from them, but it is probably dated by a month or so.
Okay. Can I ask, is there any specific thing on risk registers anywhere about anything to do with the finance of the council, but particularly the investments, as to what happens if we do leave without a deal, which appears to be becoming more likely?
Yeah, I think all the major risk registers of the council and all the major schemes do have COVID in as a key risk, and Brexit in as a key risk, and sort of the impact on that individual scheme.
Thank you. We've got no. Yeah, we're a bit off on the board. I just wondered whether we got any property that could be used for customs sheds to be thrown up at the last minute.
Chair, I was going to raise the similar point to Councillor Parish when we got to the risk registers. I mean, the government has suggested there's a possibility of sort of 4 things impacting on the economy: another wave of coronavirus, seasonal flu, no deal Brexit, and floods. So it's a case of, will the risk register be updated in line with that sort of possible scenario?
I think I read the same paper as you did, Brian, and I think all councils begin to the end of August to respond to those very things.
Excuse me, Chair. Do you want me to?
Officers are working on that over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Jean, can you answer that?
Yes, could I come in on that, Chair? Yes, because I have risk management within my remit. We've just at the minute updated all the strategic. Well, we are in the process actually of updating the strategic risk register for Q1, and certainly on the strategic risk register, you've got it on your pack, but the version you've got on your pack is actually Q4, so that is a little bit out of date now. But we do have a separate risk around Brexit, so you'll see in your pack that strategic risk 22 is specifically around the impact of Brexit for the council, and as I say, we are currently updating that for Q1 this year. Certainly those key risks that we're pointed to, a little bit like cybersecurity, the pandemic and so on, we've got an eye on that constantly, and we make sure that this strategic risk register is reflecting some of those top sort of government risks and risks that are coming out to us from our insurers and so on all the time, and reflect that. We had a pandemic on this risk register, as you remember. Pandemic flu is on there for Q4, and we've had that on, scored very highly for some time, and that did prove useful really in assisting in the actions for responding to the COVID-19, because a lot of work had been done around responding to pandemic flu. So yes, we do certainly keep an eye on that, and we are keeping an eye on the Brexit negotiations, and the Office of Governance Group have that as a key area to concentrate on as part of their action plan as well.
Anything to add to that, Brian?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything on this issue? Okay, happy to note that then and accept the report. In which case we'll go on to item 8. Item 8 is a summary of all the reports that have been issued over the last few months while we've been in the position that we are now. On page 127 of the booklet, you will see that there are 6 reports in summary in each one, in case anybody wants to raise any issues or have a question. So the first one, Appendix A, is the draft strategy of annual internal audit plan. Are there any comments on that or issues arising from that report? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Appendix B is the internal audit quarter performance report, July 2020. Any comments on that? Okay. Appendix C, write-off of unrecoverable debt. No. Appendix D, review of the Code of Corporate Governance. Appendix E, annual report of the Office of Governance Group. And finally, Appendix F, strategic risk environment, quarter 4. Nothing on that. Okay, in that case, that's item 8 dealt with. We go on to item 9, which is the work programme, which is for noting. Normally, at this case, I wish you all a safe journey home, but that's. Yeah, so can I thank you for attendance. Hopefully, we can get the sound quality improved over the course of time. There were 1 or 2 gaps in the sound reproduction tonight, but I think we all got the gist of what was happening. So again, can I thank you for attendance and declare the meeting closed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.